بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Brothers, sisters, and esteemed guests, today we're diving into a timeless topic, a timeless question. Who gets to decide what's wrong and what's right? Is it us normal folks who gets to decide if it's right or if it's wrong? Normal people whose moral compass moves around, shifts around every decade, every year. There's a new moral standard. Is it people like us, or is it somebody, or is it a being that is greater than all of us? Now, to tackle this question, we're fortunate to have with us once again Abu Mussab, a familiar face from Saudi Arabia, who shared his wisdom with us for many years. In fact, since 2012, Abu Mussab has been coming to University of Nottingham and has been part of DIW. Now, I hope that all of you are ready. Now, without further ado, Abu Mussab, the stage is yours.
جزاك الله خيرا. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. First and foremost, we like to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly the way He deserves to be praised. And we would love to exalt the mention and grant peace and ask Allah to send His blessings and salutations upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his companions, his wives, and all those who follow them on their path of righteousness until the day of judgment. Right or wrong, who decides? I was thinking of the introduction, and then I figured sometimes the best answer is the most straightforward one. Allah decides. There I said it. How audacious of me. How audacious of you, Abu Mussab. AKA, I love Nottingham University. How could you just say it just like that without any prep, without any infrastructure, without any preludes, without any fundamentals? I'll tell you why. We're going to reverse the roles. I'm going to assume that my answer is incorrect. It is not Allah. And if you attended yesterday's lecture, you know that we're speaking about the creator of the heavens and the earth. Let's say it's not Allah who decides. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I would like to give the preference to the non-Muslims. If there are any non-Muslims amongst us tonight, then I would like you to answer. And if you're not interested in answering, which we will understand and respect, you might not want to be called out in public, then any Muslim can answer the question. But let's go on this journey together. It's only 6. They could have been 60, by the way, but I chose only 6. Are you pro-abortion or anti-abortion? You could say anti-abortion, anti-abortion, both are correct. Yell. Pro-abortion, anti-abortion. Okay. Anti? Anyone who opposes that opinion? Pro? It depends. But are you pro-war or anti-war? Also depends. But who's pro-war? Who says if you have a country, let's say your country gets attacked and you want to defend yourself, which in essence becomes a war. Who's okay with that? Who's with the idea that there should be nothing but peace? No war. Find a peaceful way to resolve the matter. One voice. Good. Are you pro freedom of speech or anti freedom of speech? Pro? You can say whatever you want. You know what that means, right? That means anybody could say anything at any point in time and there should be no repercussions. No one has the right to say a single word to you. Now we know today in the world we're living, there are certain communities where if you were to say anything that offends them or hurts their feelings, you, my friend, are in trouble. You post something on social media that doesn't meet the guidelines of that social media platform and you will get banned. So when you say that you are pro freedom of speech, that means you should be able to say anything about anybody, any religion, any race, with no repercussions. Or you could say, no freedom of speech. I'm against freedom of speech. And you will have people say, hey, I have the right to say whatever I want. Number 4. I should leave that for the last one. I'll leave that for the last one. Are you for capital punishment or against it? At any point in time, can a court decide to take someone's life because of whatever the crime may be? Who's pro? Oh, you guys are violent. Who's against? Usually the ladies are going to be the ones against. All right, are you for vaccines or against them? Oh, we could be here forever with this one. And last but not least, we're all adults here. Any children? No children. Are you for sex before marriage or against it? I'm assuming the Muslims have an answer already. If you're thinking on the other line, we need to have a discussion when we're done. But for a non-Muslim, they're going to say, this is my body, my consent. Who in the world are you to tell me what I can and cannot do? And while these are just a sample of many contemporary or even old controversial issues, where if you were to leave it up to the people subjectively, we will never ever have an agreement. It's a vicious cycle that shall never come to an end, of people giving valid opinions. Mind you, it's not like that the other side is completely baseless. They have basis for their opinion, which you yourself may agree with some aspects of it. But at the end of the day, if the decision were to be for the people, by the people, then none of these issues, among many more that I cannot enumerate because we'll be here forever, no one will ever be satisfied with the way the world is going. Because if the people that decide, the decision makers say, we are against abortion, then any given woman in a given situation, let's say one that was raped, right? She was raped, she doesn't want that child. And if the law of the country says you cannot have an abortion, she is forced to keep that child. And if it's the other way around, where innocent children literally get murdered before they even see the world, on the hands of the most compassionate people, the parents, the mother herself, the caretaker of the baby, ends the baby. And I could debate myself and perhaps persuade you every time I bring an argument. I could take you on a tide. Every time I bring an argument, you will sway in one direction and then back to the other, depending on what is being presented. This is why the discussion becomes about what we call objective morality. Meaning we feel deep down that there are things that are inherently wrong. Even if that person does not believe in God in the first place, they will agree with you that there are some things that are inherently wrong. For example, if I brought with me a cute kitten and I strangled it to death, will I get any supporters? Would anyone, even if you're an atheist, would an atheist say, no problem? You could go ahead and kill the cat strangled a cute little cat? No. Why? Why? If there is no God, if we are the product of randomness, if we are the result of colliding molecules over long periods of time, which somehow and miraculously resulted in the universe, the sun, the moon, this amazing earth that we are living on, and most surprisingly, the human race. The human race. Yo, my man. The human race, from among all the miracles that you observe every single day with your eyes, you are actually the most amazing. You are more amazing than the sun, and more amazing than the moon, and more amazing than the expanding universe. The human body, the way it operates, the way it functions, the fact that you have a mouth which takes in food, that goes through a particular system, and then there's a digestive system that takes care of the food, gets the good stuff, eliminates the bad stuff, and then you have another system that releases the harmful things which were in the food that your body does not need. And the breathing, the eyes, the mind, the hands, the feet, the movement, all this came from randomness, from some chance, coincidence. Even the person that claims so will somehow tell you strangling the cat is unjustified. And once they make that admission, then we say, our explanation for this is the natural disposition that Allah has placed in you. Allah has placed in every human being certain aspects of the truth that you objectively feel that they are right, or you feel that they are wrong, and then Allah sent revelation to reinforce the existing objective morality that is within you and your system built in. It's not something that you bought from a PC store and you install the software that needs updates and upgrades. It was given to you from a young age. And this is the only way, by acknowledging that since the human beings will never be able to agree on those matters, then the decision can never be up to the human beings. And the decision has to be by the manufacturer or the maker or the creator of the human beings. Trying to convince someone that God exists is very tiring. It's one of the most tiring things in the world. Because you're in essence dealing with someone that just does not want to accept what is vivid, what is explicit, what requires no explanation, no effort whatsoever. That's like the one thing that you shouldn't spend any time on, technically speaking. Because if you're standing with someone outside and you tell him, these are trees, you have plenty of trees on campus, and he tells you, no, this is a truck. There is no, where are you going to go with this discussion? Bro, these are trees, and that's a branch. No, that's a car and a truck. This is the kind of discussion you have with someone that wants to reject the fundamentals. That even if you try as a human being to reject, eventually you will crash into a wall. You want to use science to ride on science in order to overcome the obstacle of religion, but science will not deliver you to your destination. Science will actually deliver you to more confusion than the initial confusion that you were upon. And those who know. And we all know that many human beings are professional deniers. I'm not going to give any, no, not you. A lot of people are professional at that, meaning no matter how clear things are, they're still in denial. It just doesn't register. So here, I submit to you, if it is God, then who decides what's right and what's wrong, the next question is via which vehicle does that occur? I.e., which religion? That really should be the discussion. The discussion shouldn't be whether it is us or Allah who decides. That's a no-brainer. It is surely Allah who decides, the creator of the heavens and earth who decides. The question is the claim of every religion that it is our religion, our way, that supersedes and is superior to others. This discussion actually should be among theists. The atheist, you can deal with that in a couple of minutes. If they accept, alhamdulillah, they don't accept, to Allah we complain. I can't go into your brain and format it like I format an SD card and get it to go from scratch. I can't. Nobody can. There's so much information that you can give that is self-evident. But for the religious people, then we say Islam has the most straightforward and most comprehensive set of rules that if we were to live by, wallahi, I would say 90% of the world problems will be non-existent, and I kept 10% because of the human error, the human deficiency that we would fall short. We would not be able to live up to the standards of Allah. But in terms of do's and don'ts, right and wrong, allowed and prohibited, or halal and haram, then Islam provides you with the ultimate legislation. Let's look at some of the ayat from the book of Allah. And this is important for the Muslims now, for you to be familiar with the idea of legislation. Because this is the discussion that occurs often. And we find within Muslims, some people that kind of cross the line in excommunicating other Muslims from Islam based on not ruling by what Allah revealed. We know Allah has a legislation, Sharia. Some people have it black and white. Say, Allah said this. Any given entity that does not govern or rule by that, they automatically take them outside the pale of Islam. And that is a very, very dangerous and sensitive position to be in. Not that it cannot be the case, it could be the case. But we cannot be reckless or hasty in claiming that this is the case. So we have to go through certain prerequisites, or what they call the availability of all conditions and the absence of all preventives. Any given time, you want to deal with any subject matter pertaining to Islam, or you want to pass a ruling regarding another person, then these two criteria have to be met. Number one, all the conditions have to be met. It could be that the person has to be of age, that he's of sound intellect, that he's responsible, so on and so forth. That he's aware of the ruling, he knows the ruling in advance. Some people simply don't know what Islam teaches. Some people are genuinely ignorant of the teachings of Islam. So before you say, oh, you've left Islam, no, this person needs to be educated. He needs to be informed by any Joe walking down the street? No. By a qualified person who's able to deliver to him the message adequately and accurately. And then if he rejects, after these conditions are met, we have to go to the preventives. The absence of preventives. They could be a reason that is preventing the rule from applying to him. They could be a reason or preventive that does not allow the ruling of excommunication to apply to him. This is a very advanced topic, but I wanted to give you the guidelines because, as in many other discussions we have, we always want to be wary of saying things that we will be asked about on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And you can never criticize a Muslim for wanting to be safe. It is not bravery that you say everything that you want to say, whether or not you know what you're talking about. It is not bravery, it is foolishness. Rather, you are told to be quiet when you don't know any better. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. Don't go chasing any matter that you have no knowledge of. إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. The hearing, the seeing, and your heart, all of these you'll be questioned about. So either a person is a mufti, mashallah, tabarakallah, he is a qualified mufti, to say no, that you have to speak on this matter and you have to say A, B, C, to tell someone who's saying be safe not to say anything. Because it is not emotions that run discussions in Islam. It's never been emotions. If we want to be emotional, we can all cry right now for the condition of the Muslims, not just now. We're going to forget what happened in Syria, or we're going to forget what happened in Iraq, or we're going to forget what happened in Yemen, or we're going to forget what happened in Lebanon, or we're going to forget what happened in Algeria, or we could cry for years, we could cry rivers for all the Muslims that have been killed. We can't just select one country where our sensitivity and our emotions run higher than the rest, as if the other Muslims are of no significance. Only those Muslims are of significance. Everything should make you sad. Really? But you should never make decisions based on how you feel. The whole idea, which the Shaykh explained yesterday, Shaykh Sharif Zallah Khairan, is Islam. What was the definition of Islam? Who remembers? What was the closest word to Islam? Istislam. The white flag to the Quran and the Sunnah. Sulh al-Hudaybiyah is the most classic example. A covenant, an agreement with the disbelievers of Quraysh on terms that were not in favor of the Muslims. The Sahaba themselves were outraged. And this is the very thing that Allah Azza wa Jal called, Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. Verily we have granted you the most clear victory of all victories. From among all the battles that the Prophet ﷺ had undergone, this was the covenant that he made was the most victorious one in that sense. Because it was against all the emotions of the people, of the companions. It was the embodiment of many ayat. فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah says, nay, by your Lord, they will not believe. حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ, until they make you a judge concerning any matter that they dispute about. ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ. Then they don't find within themselves any discomfort with regards to what you have decided. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. There's the istislam. And then they do submission and surrendering twice. This is Islam. So when we want to speak about any given matter, it has to be قال الله وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Any objection has to be by textual evidence. No, this is not correct because Allah said this in the Quran, because the Prophet ﷺ said this in the Sunnah, in which case the biggest shaykh will be like, سمعنا وأطعنا. We listen and we obey. No one is bigger than the revelation. Anything other than that, dismiss. So what are some of the ayat of the legislation? Allah said in Surah Al-Shura, ayah number 13, شرع لكم من الدين ما وصى به نوحا والذي أوحينا إليك وما وصينا به إبراهيم وموسى وعيسى أن أقيموا الدين ولا تتفرقوا فيه كبر على المشركين ما تدعوهم إليه الله يجتبي إليه من يشاء ويهدي إليه من ينيب. The interpretation of the meaning in English more or less is, He has ordained for you of religion what He enjoined upon Noah, and that which we have revealed to you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what we enjoin upon Ibrahim and Musa, Abraham and Moses and Jesus, to establish the religion and not be divided therein. Difficult for those who associate others with Allah is that which to which you invite them. Allah chooses for Himself whom He wills and guides to Himself whoever turns back to Him. A very important aspect of the ayah is the part about that Allah Azza wa Jal, that this is difficult for those who fall into polytheism. Meaning the natural tendency of the the one who submits to Allah is to submit to the legislation of Allah. And the one who allows any other entity, including their desires, to be more powerful than their submission to the revelation, then they will have a hard time complying and conforming to the revelation. And Allah Azza wa Jal guides to Himself whoever does inaba. Meaning when one of us goes wrong, if you were to return back to Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal will guide to you. So what do we learn from this ayah? That which Allah Azza wa Jal has revealed to us is the same thing that was given to Nuh and Ibrahim and Musa and Isa. So all the ulul azmi min ar-rusul, those of strong resolve from among the messengers, they were all given the same legislation in terms of the fundamentals. The differing are within the aspects of jurisprudence or other areas. But in terms of tawheed and shirk, then those are consistent and persistent from the time of Noah until the end of time. So therefore, the only reference in terms of who decides what's right and what's wrong is the Quran and the Sunnah. Because it is in line with the teachings of the previous prophets. If other religions wants to bring forward a claim, that we need to substantiate that with revelation that has been preserved. And rulings that cover all aspects of life. So if we were to assess the religions, technically speaking, the only religion that will give you a complete judicial law, penal codes, in the ultimate comprehensive sense is Islam. Not just at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but until the end of time. Because that which was not addressed directly, a foundational principle was given so that it applies to anything else by analogy. That's why one of the means of understanding Islam or having an evidence is qiyas. We have kitab, sunnah, ijma' and qiyas. Qiyas is analogy. So something could have been prohibited at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and that thing today is different. So for example, the Prophet ﷺ spoke about the one who eats onions or garlic. The one who eats onions or garlic should not attend the jama'ah. He should not attend the congregational prayer. Actually, the ruling, the hadith goes to the extent that if the person comes, you're allowed to take him outside the masjid. Did you know that? You can actually escort this person outside the masjid because he's going to destroy the masjid with the smell of onions and garlic. Alright? So someone says, that's it? These are the only two things? Any other stench is fine? Someone who's sweating and reeking with armpit. We say, Adi, Faddal Hayakallah. Kill the fellow Muslim next to you. Let him faint in the salah. No, the scholar said, via analogy, then that is also prohibited. The same thing about smoking cigarettes, the same thing about any kind of foul smell that will harm the believers and will harm the angels in the masjid. It is by default prohibited. So even though the hadith mentions a particular vegetable or a particular food, it actually will apply to anything that people might come up with until the day of judgment. Because that's how Islam comprehensively covers all the aspects. In fact, Allah Azza wa Jal criticized anyone who decides to refer to a legislation other than His. أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاءُ شَرَعُوا لَهُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ وَلَوْلَا كَلِمَةُ الْفَصْلِ لَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ وَإِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. In Surah Al-Shura, also ayah number 21, Allah Azza wa Jal says the interpretation of meaning in English, or have they partners who have ordained for them a religion to which Allah has to be consented, to which Allah has not consented, afwan. They came up with a religion that Allah did not approve of, basically. But if not for the decisive word, it would have been concluded between them, and indeed the wrongdoers will have a painful punishment. Allah further says in Surah Yunus, ayah 59, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُم مَّا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُم مِّن رِزْقٍ فَجَعَلْتُم مِّنْهُ حَرَامًا وَحَلَالًا قُلْ اللَّهُ أَذِنَ لَكُمْ أَمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ تَفْتَرُونَ. Another important ayah. Say, have you seen what Allah has sent down to you of provision, of which you have made some lawful and some unlawful? Say, has Allah permitted you to do so, or do you invent something about Allah? This ayah is speaking about any man-made law. Any man-made law which conflicts with what Allah has made halal and what Allah has made haram. And we know in Islam, we have three conditions. Anything can have three conditions when it comes to halal and haram, or actually five. But what is between halal and haram? Huh? Mubah? Who said mubah? Good. No. Huh? Gray area? Does it have another name? Huh? Makruh. Oh, la. If we say five, we're going to say halal and haram and makruh and mustahab and mubah. I'm not talking about those. There's a hadith that tells you halal is clear, the halal is clear, and the haram is clear. And between them are mutashabihat. You guys have to memorize those hadith. And بينهما أمور متشابهات or مشتبهات, different wordings. And between them are doubtful matters. لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس. Most people do not know them. And many people know them. If you leave them alone, then you have protected your dignity and your religion and so on and so forth, as per the continuation of the hadith. But we have halal and haram, and we have things that are in between which we're not sure about the ruling. However, we have among people those that find something that is halal and they tell you it's haram for you to do this, as though they are competing with Allah in legislating. And on the flip side, we have people that find something haram and they make it halal by changing the name. So technically, believe it or not, according to some, you could drink vodka, but you cannot drink wine. Because the ayat and the hadith speak about khamr, and khamr is translated as wine. So they say wine? No. Vodka, tequila, beer, adi. That's all good. And then instead of engaging in usury, riba, you call it interest. That's interesting. That's a twisted way of renaming things so that they can be more appealing than their actual meaning. And in the Arab world, it's called faida, al-fawaid. You know, you open a book, and then at the end of the book, there's al-fawaid, the benefits. Yeah. The benefits. Which is basically money that you are not entitled to. Because it's not a business that you're engaging in where you're making trade and making money. You're not selling and buying. You just put your money somewhere, and the bank does whatever they do with it, and they, and all kinds of unlawful things, and then you get a little bit of money, a percentage. And on the flip side, which is the worst part, is when you have to pay, when you don't pay on time, you're in debt, so you use a loan in order to fix your situation, and then they basically come up with a method to get you in a worse debt than the original one, where now you have to keep paying back, and then you're just basically digging a bigger grave. Very few people come out of that grave that they have dug. Or they suffer with it for 5-10 years paying student loans. He's already graduated, has 4 wives and 15 children, and he's still paying the student loans. Just taking advantage of a student. In Islam we have al-qardul hasan, the goodly loan. Somebody gives you 10,000 ringgits, so you can get on your feet, and when you're done, how much do you give him? 10,000 ringgits. Thank you very much. Beautiful. And whether it's a person or an entity or an organization, it could be anything. Bottom line is, I need help. Help me. Don't take advantage of me. Don't abuse me because I need some finance. But that's the way the world works. And this is a classic example of people making haram what Allah made halal, or making halal what Allah made haram. And as a result of that, we human beings continue to suffer. In Surah Yusuf, ayah number 40, it reads, مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءٌ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِن سُلْطَانٍ إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ أمر أن لا تعبدوا إلا إياه ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Subhanallah. Listen to this ayah. You worship not besides Him, i.e. Allah, except mere names. You have named them. And I'm not going to mention examples, but I'm sure everybody could think of a few names of so-called gods in the world that the people have made on their own. They've sculptured them, they've turned them into an idol or a statue, they drew them, they made them what they are, not the other way around. Those entities or deities that they call deities did not create them, for sure. And not only them, and your fathers, for which Allah has sent down no evidence. Legislation is not but for Allah. Only Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who decides what's right and what's wrong. Only Allah. Only Allah has the hukum, the ultimate hukum of what is right and what is wrong. He has commanded that you worship none except Him. That is the correct religion, but most of the people do not know. And how true is this statement? How true is this statement? Let's look at this objectively. Honestly speaking, if we wanted to compare and be fair in our analysis, in our comparison of all the religions on the scene, by Allah, which one is the most compatible with our human nature? Which one is the one with the most solutions? And mind you, I'm focusing on the solutions because I understand that in the process of arriving at the solution, there are restrictions. Because I could already imagine the people thinking, oh yeah, really? So from all these religions, the Muslim woman is the most oppressed. The default belief, which is a discussion for tomorrow, inshallah, but just to give you, to connect it with this. You see, I'm on campus with you guys. I see sisters that are dressed from top to bottom in this extremely humid weather. It's very humid. And I can understand how frustrating that is for someone to cover their entire body. And you have women that are wearing whatever they want to wear, where they're not covered. What might come to the mind of the person is that how can you claim that Islam is the ideal religion when this poor woman has to dress like this in order to please her Lord, on the expense of her going through A, B, C, D. And I will clearly tell you, this is a classic example of where we are concerned with the results, and in order to achieve those results, yes, there will be some suffering in the process. Because if there was no suffering, there would be no purpose of life. Similarly, you want to be an A+ student, you want to be a top student, you better believe, unless you're a genius, like an actual genius, you better believe there's a lot more hard work that you have to put forward to be the top student in your class. You can't do the bare minimum and expect to have the highest grades. True or false? Does any one of you is absolutely careless, is nonchalant about studying, but he's the top student in class? Raise your hand. No one? Usually you'll come across one person, by the way. In life, you'll come across this one person who you wonder what the heck's going on with you, man. Like, give me some of your brain and take it back tomorrow. But let me do the test. But for the most part, those who actually excel, you see them in the library for 2-3 hours. When everybody's out partying, they're studying. They're dedicated. Okay, so you agree with me that in order to achieve high results, there's some struggle and suffering you have to go through? Thank you very much. This is what we're going through. This is what Islam requires of us to do as well. Because we cannot expect to achieve paradise while we are going on a picnic in this world, doing everything that we want, violating all the things that Allah made forbidden. And I believe the Shaykh yesterday made it very clear. The status of women in Islam, statistically speaking, based on the United Nations and what they go through in the entire world, versus what happens within Islam. Yes, this jilbab is restricting her in some way, but it's freeing her in so many other ways. It is freeing her in so many other ways. Biggest evidence, find me a full hijabi that got harassed on campus while she was walking by. A bunch of men is like, yo. It's just not going to happen. Unless they're freaks. Unless you got some real freaks, I don't know, from right out of prison. But if a civilized student, they're just not going to be, not interested. But if a woman were to wear something extremely skimpy, and she's in a compromised situation where there aren't any other, because people care about their image. So yeah, some men will not say anything, not because he doesn't want to say anything, because he's among other people where he doesn't want to look like he's a lowlife. Had he been on his own, he might say whatever he wants to say in trying to flirt or take advantage of this woman, even just verbally. And this happens everywhere in the world. Maybe usually colleges, universities, people are more educated, more civilized. They don't stoop that low. But in the streets and elsewhere, that's how it happens. And you know this. So fundamentally speaking, any objection that a person has, polygyny, also known as polygamy. We're not going to differ on the terminology, because one means a woman could also have more than one husband, which Islam doesn't have. That's polygamy. Polygyny is when a man can have more than one wife. This is another objection. And I could give you, on behalf of the non-Muslims, a list of objections. That they say, you have this, and you have that, and you have this, and you have that, and then you claim that Islam is the ultimate religion. Yes, absolutely. For the same reasons. For the same reasons that you're complaining, those are the same reasons that prove that Islam is the true religion of God. Because we're not sellouts. We haven't sold our religion for a cheap cost, like many have. Their religion has completely shifted to the point where you don't know what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's okay, what's not okay. The belief, the creed itself is subject to change. The God of Trinity had to go through a process before it became Trinity. It was not Trinity in the beginning. It was first the Father, and then the Father and the Son. Then they realized that the Holy Spirit was left out. And then the Holy Spirit was introduced into the triune God. And then Paul added more elements, and then what Jesus taught was in essence gone. The first commandment, gone. All the 10 commandments are technically gone. There should be no image of God. But today we have images of God. And the list goes on. Allah further criticized and called anybody who refers to a law other than his to be a sign of the days of ignorance. أَفَحُكْمَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حُكْمًا لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 50. Then is it the judgment of the time of ignorance they desire? But who is better than Allah in judgment for a people who are certain in faith? Subhanallah. Let that sink in for the Muslims. Let that sink in. Anytime there's a conflict and someone wants to resort to a source, an external source outside the revelation, is in essence going back to the days of ignorance. So they tell you, what does the law say? No, before you ask about the law, because the law may or may not be in agreement with Islam, what you should ask is, what does the revelation say? What does Allah say? What does the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ say? Once we know that, then we could look into the law, because you want to also abide by the laws of the country you live in. Mind you, Muslims should also be reasonable in the sense that you don't go to another country and then you want to impose Sharia law in their country. You are living in their country as a foreigner. You are a minority. So there has to be also some wisdom in how to go about these things, especially if there's going to be backlash on the Muslims, which will result in more restrictions and more preventions. So much so that they can't go to the mosque, women cannot wear hijab, everything gets banned. There's all types of ban. So you have to be wise. There has to be leadership among the people of knowledge who decide. Surely we want the Sharia to rule the whole world. But we're also realists. We are living in a real world. This utopia that people are dreaming about is actually not even prophesied by the Prophet ﷺ. Meaning we already know that until the major and the minor signs of the Day of Judgment and the coming of Jesus back, Jesus descending in Damascus, and Al-Mahdi, Al-Muntadhar, who's been waited for, until those happen, which is towards the end of time, what you're dreaming about of this rulership, the ultimate rulership, is not going to happen. As per the prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. In fact, each decade and each generation will be worse than the one that preceded it, until we reach those times. But when people are again not acquainted with the Islamic teachings and the Islamic principles, then a person can read one ayah, one hadith, and go on a full-fledged campaign. And they only know literally one ayah, one hadith. You need to ask this person, have you read the entirety of Sahih Bukhari? And the entirety of Sahih Muslim? And the entirety of Sunan Ibn Majah? And Abu Dawood? And An-Nasa'i? And At-Tirmidhi? And Musannaf Ibn Abi Shaybah? And we can go on and on listing all the ulama of scholars. You haven't even read more than 5 hadith in Bukhari. You haven't even read the 40 Nawawi. Ya Sheikh. Hello. So when we don't have those things in place and you think you figured it all out, usually you haven't figured it out. That's why we are told, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge, the people of dhikr, if you don't know. And we need to admit, we don't know. When you admit that you don't know, you'll be doing yourself before anybody else a favor. So, according to what I presented to you, I submit to you the following. If people lived by the legislation of Islam, there will be less rape. And again, I'm saying less and not no, because even within Islam, people will violate. Muslims themselves, they will know this is forbidden and they will do it. And they will know this is an obligation and they will abandon it. Because Muslims are imperfect. Islam is perfect. Muslims are imperfect. So there's no way that everything can be eliminated. But in terms of frequency, volume of occurrence, there will be less rape, less death, less molestation. Less molestation. Islam goes to the point of telling you at which age kids cannot even share the same sheets, bed sheets. Even a child with his mom and dad, they have restrictions about their sleeping habits and what the parents can wear in front of the kids, and vice versa. You say, what is that for? Because we live in a sick world, buddy. Because in this world there's all kinds of incest and molestation, and maybe some here are victims of that. They've lived through this hell on earth because of this, people violating. Is Islam even put guidelines to close all of those doors? All of those doors. There will be less crime. There will be less poverty. Every one of you will have to pay 2.5% of your savings if they reach a certain nisab. I don't know, what is it in Malaysia? 3,000 ringgits? 20,000 ringgits? Most of you are not qualified. Or who's got 20,000 ringgits? We'll have dinner together, inshallah. طيب. Less poverty. Because the rich are forced. Yani, by the way, you do know that if a businessman had 2 million ringgits, let's test your math skills. How much is 2.5% of 2 million? Ya Habibi. Are you sure? Anyone validates Abdul Qayyum's opinion or rejects? Those with the calculator, don't bother. The people with the calculator, can you validate? 2 million ringgits is how many? 50,000? So you do know that someone who has 2 million ringgits, it could and is allowed in Islam to go to one poor person and say, here, there's 50,000 ringgits. You're not poor anymore. Or he could distribute it among a bunch. But imagine if all the rich people in the world became Muslim and all of them paid 2.5% of their wealth to the needy people. And it's an obligation. And if they don't, Allah would punish them on the Day of Judgment. Will there be any poor people? There will be no poor people, Habibi. There will be less poverty, less debts. I already mentioned debts. Less wars, less oppression, less transgression, because a Muslim is expected to speak the truth even against himself. Even against himself. When a woman at the time of the Prophet ﷺ stole, and her hand was to be chopped, and the people wanted to use their connections with the Prophet ﷺ to try to get her out of trouble. So they're trying to negotiate and bribe. You know, this is a person from the higher part of the society, an elite. Let it slide. The Prophet ﷺ became angry. He said, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, were to steal, and we have criteria for stealing. Just in case you're a non-Muslim, don't think you go get this bottle of water from here. We're going to chop off your hand outside. We have a table ready and a butcher and a knife and everything. Did you take that juice yet last week? Ta'al. Don't do it again. There's a huge criteria for that to apply. Yani a person needy, he's trying to feed his children, nothing will happen. The amount is too small, nothing will happen. The item was left outside. Somebody left his phone here. Someone came and stole it. It will not happen. I have to have this phone inside a safe, and this person has to be a professional thief. Go into my room, go into the safe, break it open, take my stuff and go. Not trying to feed his children, he's just a thief. Then he will meet the Qadi in court, and bitawfiq inshallah. Anyways, the Prophet ﷺ said, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad ﷺ, were to steal, we would chop off her hand. So there will be no oppression, because that's even against his own family ﷺ. There will be less transgression. Oh, guess what? There will be less drunk driving, and therefore less victims of drunk driving. Allah knows how many humans have died from some funny person drinking his behind off and then deciding to drive home. Not only do they kill themselves, they kill the innocent. Alcohol is prohibited in Islam. You're not even having a lick. You're not even smelling it. You can't even be sitting on a table where alcohol is served. There will be less drugs consumption, because drugs are forbidden. There will be less smoking. Bad news for some. Which means less pollution and less confusion. There will be less mistreatments of parents. Because Islam does not allow you, when your parents get old and you're sick and tired of them, put them in what do they call it? Old Madri house? Old age house? Yalla, go, let the nurse take care of them. And send them a cheesecake and a muffin once a week. And khalas, you're off the hook. In Islam, if you want to dive into Jahannam head first, try to pull that stunt. Of becoming undutiful to your parents, not that they are too old. Now, there might be some conditions where they're sick and you cannot take care of them. Obviously, that's not what I'm referring to. But someone who's able to take care of his parents and just doesn't care, or you forget your mom the whole year and you remember her on Mother's Day, even though in Islam every day is technically a Mother's Day, in that sense that you're supposed to be dutiful to your mom, even more so than your dad. There will be less mistreatment of parents. And there will be less disrespect of the elderly, because Islam commands you to respect those who are older than you, even if they're older than you by 1 day. Let alone 1 year, let alone a decade, let alone more than that. There will be less homeless people. There will be less favoritism in treating children. In Islam, you're not allowed to give a gift to one child and leave the other one unattended. And yesterday's question in the Q&A with the Sheikh was people voicing their problems with their parents, where their parents clearly favor some kids over others. And I had a discussion with some other teenagers, something that I didn't realize. Supposedly the eldest kid gets the most crap, and then the middle kid is neglected. He wants attention, no one gives it to him, and the little one is the one who basically runs the show. I was like, why are you describing my house? They're like, oh, that's your house too? I said, I mean, that's natural. Yes, my first son, he was my lab rat. We were experimenting with the guy. It's not like we know what we're doing. It's the first child. You might have been rough when you should have been nice, or you could have been nice when you should have been rough. It's honestly not easy. Anybody here is a parent? I don't think so. Wallah, it's not easy. Dealing with another human being and they're trying to, tweak them to work out is not easy at all. So naturally, the first one goes through a lot of experiments because the parents themselves are learning how to get the job done. They're learning how to be parents. It's not like when you came to university, they gave you a course in parenthood or parenting. The middle one gets neglected when there's a third child, because the third child is the one who gets all the attention. That's also natural. But the third child is spoiled by the parents and the siblings because they're still cute. Wait until they become uncute. Then they join the force of all the kids with problems with their parents. The bottom line is Islam does not allow any favoritism in treating the children. So even if you emotionally prefer a child, and parents will lie to you and tell you they don't have a preferred child, they have a preferred child. But you don't have to tell them. That would be ludicrous to say, you're my favorite son. It's like, hello. The other son will get devastated, man. But in terms of treatment, that's your feeling, keep it to yourself and let the children enjoy their lives. But in terms of treatment, you cannot gift someone something and leave the other one unattended. Give this one a huge room and put the other one in a hut. Get this one a car and the other one a bicycle. No. There will be less spousal and domestic conflicts, because Islam teaches you how to deal with women, and it teaches women how to deal with men based on their nature. But that we will be discussing inshallah ta'ala more tomorrow. And trust me when I say that we can give an independent lecture on each of these above topics. You see each example I mentioned? Wallah, we can give an independent lecture on each one of them and show you how Islam offers solutions for each and every one of them. But then the semester would end, you would still be here, and you would fail, and I will get fired. Because we'll never get this job done. It's hundreds of hours of lectures on the subject matter. So in conclusion, who decides what's right and what's wrong? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Via which vehicle? The Quran and the Sunnah. If human beings were to save themselves from the troubles of the world and from the torment of the hellfire, then they will enter into Islam for their own good. And remember, anytime and every time there's a Discover Islam Week, or there's a booth, or there's a pamphlet, and someone, or you as a Muslim, anytime you're trying to speak to another person that is not Muslim, trying to bring him into Islam, wallahi, all we're trying to do is do you a favor. Because of love, care, concern, and to fulfill an obligation that is upon us. There's no monetary benefit. All these are not even in the subject of discussion. But if I don't want to burn in the fire, I don't want any other human being to burn in the fire, because I could perceive and imagine how painful that would be. So we do this out of pure love, out of pure concern. And you as a Muslim, you should not be passive, complacent, and docile when it comes to your interaction with your non-Muslim friends. You need to make an effort always to try to deliver the message of Islam to them in whichever way is best for them. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's the same. Some people you could speak freely with. Some people you give them material. Some people you send them a link of a lecture that you think is beneficial. Some people you bring to someone who knows better than you. Some people you might write them an email. You need to figure out what your acquaintances need. But please do not deprive yourself of the obligation and the opportunity to invite someone to Islam. If they accept Islam, then that will be the greatest victory for you, Allah. Because everything good that they will do afterwards will be in your book of deeds. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to help us be among those who propagate the message of Islam, forgive our shortcomings and sins in the process of doing so because we're not perfect. We're not perfect. When I speak about Islam, I'm not infallible. When I say something, it could be correct, it could be wrong. No one is going to be able to give you 100% pure message. So that's why we always seek from Allah forgiveness, because we will fall short. We will fall short. Jazakumullahu khairan. I guess we could have the Q&A now.
Barakallahu feek, Abu Mussab, for shedding light on this long-standing question about who gets to decide what's right and what's wrong. Now we'll transition into the second part of the event, which is not Q&A. It'll come after the Kahoot, inshallah. So give us 2 minutes while we set that up.
Where's the goat?
The goat is not here today.
Oppa.
Yes, he's missing.
Wallah, he must be a goat. To call himself a goat before the game and then win the game. Does everybody know what goat means? I hope you don't think it's a goat, like a herd, an animal. You over there, what's goat? Huh? No, the kid behind you. What does GOAT stand for? It's an acronym for which words? Habibi. What's his name? All the way over there. Yes, you. You're not sure? Ya Sheikh. Wow. Hi, Masood. Greatest of all time. That's what GOAT stands for. GOAT, greatest of all time. Who's the greatest basketball player of all time? What? طيب ماشي. I'm trying to waste time for you to set up. Is it working?
Yes, it's underway.
Good. طيب يلا, I'll ask you another question. Who can name 2 surahs that end with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen? No, either you give me both or you can't give me half an answer. I need one person to give me an answer for 2. 2 surahs that end with the first ayah of Al-Fatiha. Sisters, anyone? Nope. Not even you? Who's the Hafiz here? Huh? Oh, everybody's going to point at the other guy, huh? Khalas, we'll leave it for another day. Go ahead.
Yes, so the QR code is up, and we'll give everybody 3 minutes to sign up or join the Kahoot, inshallah. The winner of the Kahoot will win a grab voucher. So the grab voucher amount will be disclosed after, inshallah.
LeBron James.
We don't have the goat today, but we have not goat. So
There's a goat. Scroll down. There, goat with 3 T's.
SubhanAllah.
2 of them.
There's actually a lot of goats.
Come on, guys. That's cheesy. Long livips. Gibran, another Gibran. Fattoush. This has to be Lebanese. Do you select the character or it selects it automatically?
It selects it automatically at first, but you can change it after.
طيب. One way to fitness. Oppa.
We'll give it 1 more minute.
One way to fitness is mine. Please win. Creature.
Okay, I hope all of you are ready. We will start now. So the first question of today's event is, right or wrong? Who it says? Very simple question.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah. Nobody got this one wrong. It would have been an army out of it otherwise.
Says mother knows best.
Okay, we have symbol at first, and we have do your coursework, I think, in second, which is good advice. What's the most amazing creation in the universe? Is it the moon? Is it the sun? Is it the humans? Or is it the expanding universe? It is humans. Humans is the best of all creation. Beef is now number 1, Kate is now number 2, and then the simple person is now number 3. This is a multi-select, so we might see a change in leaderboard. What will be people be questioned on the day of judgment? The grammar is not grammar. Okay, it was seeing, hearing, and hearts. Exactly.
Oi.
Yes. A major shuffle in the leaderboard. One way to fitness is now number 1. One way to fitness, by the way, is Mussab. I think Instagram handle.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So make him proud, inshallah.
He's gonna lose.
What is the biggest victory for the Muslims from the options below? Is it the Treaty of Hudaybiyah? Is it the Battle of Badr? Hijrat to Medina? Or the Battle of the Trench?
Oh.
It is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Let's see.
Well, the answer is also correct. I understand why they said that. It's okay though. You guys have to realize.
Is that you, man?
It has to be based on the question of the lecture, not based on what you think. Be smart. You understand? Even if it's wrong, choose the right one that I said.
Move on to the 5th question. This is a true or false? Jurisprudence for the various prophets were different. Is this true or is this false?
Wow.
Jurisprudence in Arabic, I guess, is
Fiqh, yes.
and the answer,
Oi!
answer is true. Most people got this wrong. So you should. Okay, one way to fitness again goes back to number 1. Number 2. Question number 6. Again, another multi-select question. The one who eats dash is not meant to join congregation. Is it onion, orange, dates, or garlic?
Multi-select, huh?
Multi-select, yes.
Wow.
and garlic. Alhamdulillah, most people got this right.
Because they like it.
All of you guys got this right. All of that.
Oh.
Okay, the leaderboard's not really changing too much at the top, but this Quran, and then we have One Way to Paradise.
Wow.
It's now in P5. Okay, so just a note, this ruling extends to anything that will cause harm to the people next to you in the congregation.
What?
Question number 8. Polygamy is allowed in Islam. Is this true or false?
Polygamy.
Should be a pretty easy one. A lot of
Wait.
people got this wrong.
I'll tell you why though. Polygamy, as written right now, is a man having more than one wife or a woman having more than one husband, which usually is used loosely. The actual technical term is polygyny, spelled with a G-Y-N-Y. This one restricts the man to women. So that is the right answer. So whatever was written right now is actually false.
False. There you go.
Capiche?
So now DIW is the number one Uthman, and One Way to Fitness fall one spot down.
عادي عادي.
Polygyny is accepted, but not polygamy.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. Look it up in the dictionary later, trust me.
True or false question? We should not ask the people of knowledge if we don't know. True or false? It is false. Yeah.
Two guys said,
Two guys got this wrong. So yeah, if you want to acquire knowledge, please go to a person with knowledge and not a person without knowledge. Leaderboard did not change, so DIW is still the number one. The last question. If you reach a certain nisab, what is the proportion of your wealth should you give for the sake of Allah? Is it 1.25%, 5%, 0.0025, or 140?
oh,
Can I answer the third question?
Oppa.
Third question. I feel like this question will catch out a lot of people. And the answer was 140.
Man, who chose 0.0025? That's like you're not gonna give not even a ringgit for someone, even if you're a millionaire. Are you kidding me?
140 refers to 2.5.
11 people said 1.25?
Yeah. So now let's find out who won the difference. In P3, we have Uthman. In P2, we have.
Oh, do lost.
And then the winner is One Way to Fitness.
Whoa! Yeah.
Okay, you made that one sound proud.
MashaAllah عليك.
One Way to Fitness.
Hey, wait, don't give him. What? He's the one who actually wrote the questions, no?
No.
Okay,
But
good.
It is a party committee, so the person is signaling that he will forfeit his prize and he will give it to DIW. Who is DIW here? Okay, that's Deva. Deva, inshallah, you are the winner. You are the winner of Kahoots. We'll come back to you with the crowd. Okay, now we will move on to our last section of the event, which is Q&A. Let me put up the Pigeonhole QR code. The Pigeonhole QR code is up on the screen, so scan it if you want to ask a question through this platform. Otherwise, if you want to ask a question in person, then you can do that as well. Questions answered in person are going to be given priority. So with that being said, if there's anybody with a question from the brothers or sisters side, please raise your hand.
There's a sister who's raising her hand.
Yes, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I have a question a bit different from today's topic. As Allah has revealed to mankind the first word, which is Iqra, to study, do we have a limitation on what we should study or research on things around us in the world, especially topics about astrology, horoscope, or tarot? Also, or can we just get general knowledge without practicing, or is it considered shirk?
That's a very good question. Alhamdulillah wa salatu salamu ala rasulillah. Just to be more technical though, Iqra means to read or recite. And yes, the scholars have understood from such command the value of knowledge and the importance of knowledge, but in reality, any ayah or any hadith that speak about the acquisition of knowledge, they are referring to Islamic knowledge. That is the fundamental principle. As for the other areas of life and the other sciences, then these fall under what is known as fardul kifaya. It's a communal obligation on some people to study in order to better the Muslim community. And that includes all the other sciences, except the ones that are explicitly prohibited in Islam. So horoscopes as something that you study is not allowed at any point in time. It is not a field that a Muslim is allowed to engage in, because it's the premise upon which it is built conflicts with the aqidah of the Muslim. And we know that even if you were to read the horoscopes without believing in them, you still have an issue in Islam in regards to the validity of your salah and other issues, let alone believing in them, which is tantamount to disbelief. So I'm not really familiar what exactly you meant by astrology in terms of studying the universe and planets and the likes, no issue. But anything that is of a particular nature that has to do with idolatry or paganism or belief in these matters, then a Muslim should not learn nor get involved in any way, shape, or form, because you're basically you're exposing yourself to doubt. And we are told in Islam to avoid anything that is doubtful, not to barge into doubt and think that we will be able to get ourselves out of it. So many people expose themselves to debates. They hear a debate between this person and that person. They were good before the debate, and now after the debate, they have adopted new doubts that they didn't have before they listened to this debate, thinking that they will be able to manage. No, you don't expose yourself if you don't have information. You don't expose yourself to this kind of situation. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek. Any other questions from the brothers or sisters? Please raise your hand. If there's no questions, then I'll take questions from Pigeonhole. This person is asking, how do you cope with depression as a Muslim?
You don't. You don't have depression as a Muslim. Let me be clear. Are there Muslims that are depressed? Yes. Where's the problem? With their Islam. The problem is with their Islam. Their level of Iman in what Allah revealed is resulting in stress, anxiety, and depression. By default, there are certain adhkar and ad'iyah from the Prophet ﷺ that help us overcome the condition that we might find ourselves in. But for a Muslim to be perpetually depressed is because a more important thing has to be fixed, and that is their relationship with Allah. Their relationship with Allah. Why? The Prophet ﷺ said, عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. Wondrous and amazing is the affair of the believer. فَإِنَّ أَمْرَهُ كُلَّهُ خَيْرٌ. All of his affair is good. إِنْ أَصَابَهُ ضَرَّاء صَبَرْ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. If a calamity hits him, befalls him, afflicts him, he is patient, and that is good for him. وَإِنْ أَصَابَهُ خَيْرًا شَكَرْ. And if good comes to him, he is grateful and thankful to Allah. وَهَذَا خَيْرٌ لَهُ. And that is good for them. وَهَذَا لَيْسَ لِأَحَدٍ إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. And this is not for anybody except the believer. Meaning the believer, even depressing, sad news, he receives it with patience so that he is rewarded for that calamity. So the depression, because my understanding of depression is something that is more chronic and long, as opposed to just being sad. We all get sad. You feel me? I'm making the distinction between sadness and depression. I get sad, you get sad. If I ordered a coffee and they gave it to me cold or with sugar and I want it with no sugar, I'm going to be sad. And I would be upset. Am I going to be depressed? For weeks, I don't sleep at night and I wake up and, wake up and walk outside on the back. What happened? The coffee. Ya akhi, khalas, ya akhi, you've had 16 coffees since. Allah, depression has hit me. Someone died. Is there anything worse than someone dying? Tayyib, we are told in Islam, you have 3 days when you see this person to give him condolences. After 3 days, you're not even allowed to give him condolences. You know why? In order not to remind them of the dead one. And he's been struggling to forget his mother passed away. You see him after 2 weeks. Say, oh, I heard your mom died. May Allah have mercy on her. Ya akhi, leave him. He barely just forgot. He's trying to have a peace of mind. You bring back the pain and the memory. This is how Islam deals with this. It closes the door for you to be depressed. You could be sad, you could be upset, you could be irritated, you could be frustrated, no problem. There's adhkar you say in the morning, adhkar you say in the evening. There's adhkar you say at the moment. Let's say something happens that you don't like. Say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa akhlif li khayran minha. This is a dua when something bad happens to you. You're driving by, you see people got into an accident, it makes you sad. You say, Alhamdulillah alladhi afani mimma ibtalakum bihi wa faddalani ala kathiran mimman khalaqa tafdila. You're told, you praise Allah for having saved you from what He afflicted others with you, and He had preferred you over many of His creation in so many ways. For every situation, we have a teaching from Islam, either a dhikr or a dua that helps you overcome this difficulty. But that should never be depression. If you're depressed, that means now we have to take time out. Let me check my iman. Something's wrong with my faith. Because if I know Allah sees me and hears me, and Allah is merciful to me, and we know that Allah Azza wa Jal afflicts the people whom He loves, and the most tested people were the prophets and the messengers, and then those who are close to them in iman. Even when something bad happens, I understand this is mercy from Allah. Worst case scenario, I committed a sin. I committed a major sin. And Allah punished me for it. Even then you should say, Alhamdulillah. Because if Allah didn't make you pay for it now, you might have to pay for it on the day of judgment. When you pay for it now, you no longer have to pay for it on the day of judgment. So even that is good for you. So when you understand the dynamics of faith in Islam, even depressing events will be things you're able to cope with. That's why there's no such thing as a depressed Muslim. You're sad, frustrated, you can overcome it inshallah with the adhkar of the morning and the evening and for the various situations. Allahu A'lam.
Okay, Mussab, ask his question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
You mentioned that when you're giving your children gifts, you should give them equally, right? Well, what if you give your child, let's say, graduates or like completes a course and you reward him for that, but not the others because of what he did? So like, let's say.
That's fine. So that is in the context of no particular event. That, for example, a child becomes older. They need a bigger room because now they have more, there's no one taking care of them, they're taking care of themselves. So this is situational. If there's no context, no occasion, and you want to give, then you have to give equally. But if someone graduated and the other one failed, and one child graduates from school, the other one fails, you go buy both of them a car, say, Habibi, this is for your graduation and this is for your failure. They're going to be like, wow, this is great. I'm going to fail next year. So, arhamni. You understand? It's going to be in that situation now.
Any other questions from the crowd?
Good question, Mas'ud. Is that yours?
Since there's no questions from the crowd, I will take one from Pigeonhole. Abu Mussab, this person is asking, is manifestation, I guess it's pseudoscience, is it haram?
What?
Manifesting something. As in like putting it out in the universe and then attracting it. That's the law of attraction. That's what you call it.
That applies to farts.
Say again?
You put a fart out in the universe, and what happens? It attracts people who are going to curse you for the smell you left behind. I don't understand the question. Somebody explain to me the intricacies of this law.
I guess the person who, let's say, believes in this manifestation, that person does not believe in religion.
Okay.
And the way they attract stuff, or the way they achieve stuff, or the way they ask for stuff, is by putting it out in the universe, for example.
Okay.
And they say, oh, I'm going to become this, I'm going to get this position, so I'll put it out in the universe. And then when it does happen, they attribute that thing happening to law of attraction. Or like they said it.
Okay, I understand now. Okay, I've heard that before.
Yeah,
so the question is by a Muslim.
That's the question.
Okay, come on, man.
Yeah, this is
Yo, that's like what? It's like Russian roulette or something, or just throwing the number in hopes it lands on number 23 and you're putting it out there and believing that Allah does not decree and Allah does not control the qadar of the spinning of the wheel and where your dice or whatever is going to land. You're basically, you're stripping Allah Azza wa Jal of all aspects of hikmah, tadbir, wisdom, arranging affairs, taqdeer, the things that Allah Azza wa Jal decrees. All of these are being set aside because you're basically dealing with the universe as though the universe is a separate entity that takes and gives. Like you want to become the CEO of a company, so you put it out in the universe. And so what? You write a piece of paper and you put it on the balcony, and then the universe sees it. So, he wants to become a CEO. Then the universe says, okay, yalla, let's start working on fulfilling and manifesting this guy's dream. I mean, if you're a Muslim, you're thinking like this. I don't know. If I understood it correctly, but either way, this is shirk and kufr, and it's not allowed.
Any questions from the crowd? Okay. I'll take it from Pigeonhole.
Stop saying that word, please. Just say we're gonna get it from the barcode.
Understood.
What are these names, man? Kahoot, Pigeonhole. Come on, man.
We'll go with this question. The question is, how to deal and talk with the Muslim mother who is against me improving my hijab. Hijab meaning not only my headscarf, but also in character.
Yeah, what was the first?
How do you deal with and talk to a Muslim mother?
Okay, so the Muslim mother is not happy with her daughter dressing properly according to Islam.
Yes, and it also says that not only the headscarf, or not only the hijab, the physical, but also the character.
Beautiful. طيب. Who knows the ayah that answers this question? Who knows the ayah that answers this question? There's an ayah that answers this question explicitly. It's in Surah Luqman. ولقد وصينا الإنسان بوالديه ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك وإلي المصير وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا واتبع سبيل من أناب إلي until the end of the ayat. Allah Azza wa Jal said, and we have enjoined and ordained upon human to be dutiful to his parents. His mother bore him in difficulty and hardship upon difficulty and hardship, and his weaning is in 2 years. And وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ, and if both of them strive and struggle against you, not to take off the hijab or not to deteriorate your character, no, to commit shirk in Allah. Your parents are actively telling you to disbelieve in Allah and renounce or denounce your Islam and become a Jew or a Christian or a Hindu or a Buddhist or an atheist or whatever it is. They don't want Islam. And they do mujahada, meaning they strive and they struggle. Allah said, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, do not obey them. So as soon as you hear do not obey them, the defense mechanism that we have might lead us to transgress or to become undutiful. Therefore Allah Azza wa Jal immediately said, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Now what does the word sahib mean? What word do you know from Islam that is similar to sahib? Sahabi. The sahabi is the companion. Sahib is your friend. Sahibhuma, be a good friend to both of them. Fi dunya, in this worldly life, ma'rufa, in that which is known to be good. So when your mother tries to prevent you from obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may not obey her in anything that she tells you regarding the subject matter. But if she told you to wash the dishes, hypothetically, if that's what's happening at home, you cannot use her oppression of you regarding your hijab for you to become nasty or disrespectful or rude or to ignore her. So you don't violate Allah's deen to please anybody. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There's no obedience to any creation if it entails disobeying the Creator. But you are expected to be respectful, kind, courteous, and sweet to your mother in spite of that. And why don't you admonish her? Say, Mom, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. I don't want to go to the hellfire. Can you not have some mercy on me? I understand that you feel that I'm too much. I understand. Believe me, I understand. You're not the only one. But don't you want me to be happy? This makes me happy. I'm trying to please my Lord. I'm trying to grow my faith. Did I tell you I'm going to go blow up a train? No, seriously. Did I tell you I'm going to become an extremist, fundamentalist, radical person? Did I tell you anything? No. All I'm saying is I want to dress a certain way and I want to behave a certain way. And this is something that is praiseworthy. This is something that is noble. This is something that should be appreciated. Please, for the sake of Allah, please, I'll kiss your hand. And kiss her hand. And get her some flowers and some chocolate. And write her a letter. Negotiate with her. So, because mothers are compassionate by nature, they will eventually, inshallah, she will soften up. Even if she doesn't, that's what's on you. That's what's on you to continue to do. And no matter what she says, do not obey her in the violations that she wants you to fall into. Also, you could outsource this kind of assistance from your aunt, from your grandfather, from anybody else in the family. If you're not doing a good job in communicating that to her, someone else can speak on your behalf. It could be another righteous sister in the community who can come and knock some sense into her, reason with her. So you try to apply all of those options, but fundamentally, please do not let that transgression of hers lead you to become undutiful, because two wrongs don't make it right. And you cannot fix a wrong in Islam by committing a wrong of your own. So we have standards by which and principles by which we operate, and we need to stick to those, inshallah. May Allah make it easy for you.
We'll take one more question. So if anybody wants to ask in person, otherwise we'll take one from QR.
From the barcode.
From the barcode.
Just imagine like 10 years from now when this application no longer exists. And people watch the lecture and say, I'm going to get the question from the pigeonhole. And like, I've never heard of it until yesterday. And every time you would say it, I was like, what in the world? Like, why did they name it like this? And I'm not thinking anything nasty. It could be like a pigeon in a hole. Just in case you thought I'm going somewhere else. Why though? Why a pigeonhole? You see what I'm saying? It's such a strange name for an application. Gen Z. Pigeon.
Okay, so there's no questions in person. I'll take one from the barcode.
Poor thing, man.
Okay, so we'll take this one, last question. The person asks, is sitting with women friends for eating or studying, etc., is it allowed?
Yes, it's very much not allowed. I mean, how is that going to happen? I've seen the scene of those happy friends enjoying a meal together, and unless you're oblivious to life, genders, reality, emotions, desires, then you could possibly think it's okay. But if all of these are functioning in you properly, then you know that such a thing can never be okay. Or eventually it might not be okay. Meaning you could say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, she's just a friend. We don't, have any of this. We don't have any feelings. I don't look at it this way. Blah, blah, blah. Besides that being the biggest lie in the world. Assuming that you're being honest and truthful, let's reverse it. Let's say one day she calls you and says, I think I have feelings for you and I like you. And I want to go out with you. And even though you were like the neutral guy who had nothing going on, I would say 9 out of 10 men would swiftly and happily make the change. And you would wonder, but dude, I mean, I thought you had nothing. Yeah, but I mean, No, I know exactly what I'm saying. I understand. I feel you. Because that's just the way it is. But even in this extreme situation where two people genuinely don't have anything going on, at the end of the day, Islam came to close the door. So while you could be honest and sincere, and yes, even 100 years from now, actually she will call you, say, I want to go out with you, say, hey, like this is like the man. Are you crazy, woman? I don't like you like that. Don't call me no more. If that man exists, even if he was this serious, or he tried to approach her, she said, no, are you crazy? We're just friends. I've never looked at you this way. Even then, Islam says such a context, such a scenario, such a setting is a fertile environment or soil for all kinds of transgressions. First of all, you can't lower the gaze. Then there's the close proximity. And the same goes for studying. Because you could be eating, could be studying. Not that you cannot communicate with the other gender. You can communicate with the other gender respectfully and decently, but within certain guidelines in Islam. Otherwise, we've seen what has happened in the world as a result of the people taking it a little bit too easy. But anyways, that's a lecture for tomorrow, inshallah, so let's not shoot ourselves in the foot.
Barakallahu feek, Mussab, for answering those questions. Before we conclude, I'd like to make a few announcements. So this week, as we all know, is DIW, Discover Islam League, and we have 5 talks on Monday to Thursday, or Monday to Friday, and we're already done with 2, so that leaves us with 3. So tomorrow's talk is going to be about woman versus man, or man and woman. It's going to be, again, same timing, 8 o'clock, and F3 812 will be delivered by Abu Mussab. And then after that, the 4th talk will be about God, man, messenger. It's going to be a talk about Jesus, peace be upon him. Same timing, in a different room, F1 811. It will be given by Ustad Sharif al-Arab. Then for the last talk, it'll be about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is a guide for humanity. Again, timing will be the same in F3A12. With that being said, we are finished with this event. We have refreshments outside, so please feel free to help yourselves. And then after that, we will be going to the masjid and performing Isha prayer. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.